Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipino-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So, let's get hacking.
I'm very concerned with people's privacy and security, so I try to make sure I collect the least amount possible. It's kind of core to the experience is to never ask for banking credentials. I don't understand how people can give them out to sites. You hear about data breaches all the time. If a website or app can log in to your bank account and retrieve like your transactions, unless they're using Plaid or something like that, and even then it's a little risky. At least it's a bigger company. But if it's anyone else, it means that literally they have your password in the clear. They could go in, they could transfer money from your account. I mean, it's terrifying. And I think a lot of people just put like this kind of trust in it because it's an app in the App Store. But it's important to be really, really critical of that. And just be protective of your data, be protective of all this stuff. People tend to, people are really quick to monetize users in other ways, like sell your data. It's a scary world out there when you really analyze it. And so it's really important to give as little as possible, so that way you don't have to take too much of a risk. And in this case, you can do everything that you need to maximize your savings and maximize points and rewards without having to hand over that data. So there's no reason to hand it over.
Hello, travel hackers. You just heard a clip from Emmanuel. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Geobreeze.
He is the maker of the wildly popular CardPointers app. And in case you haven't already jumped on the CardPointers train, it is an easy-to-use app that answers the fundamental question of, which card should I even be using for this purchase? As well as providing many additional features such as tracking for your statement credits each month. In this episode, I am going to interview the man behind the app. Emmanuel walks us through his journey of how he got into travel hacking, his transition from his day job as a software engineer to working on the app full-time, and more. You're going to hear me fangirl over the app a lot in this episode, and I just want to note, none of this is even sponsored content. The app really is just that good. Emmanuel is also a regular guest at our Geobreeze Travel Podcast off-air hangouts, where listeners and featured guests jump on a video call each month to help answer each other's points and miles questions. And Emmanuel has often given out door prizes, such as a free month of CardPointers Pro, the paid version of the app that comes with even more features to help you with your travel hacking lifestyle. As you have all heard me say before, the best travel hack is making friends who can show you even more travel hacks. If you would like to join us for the next hangout, you can sign up at geobreezetravel.com/hangouts to get on the invite list. And now, on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. Today we welcome Emmanuel. Hey Emmanuel, how are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, we are so excited to have you here today. So before we jump into all of the glorious details of what the CardPointers app does, including saving me a ton of time every month deciding which of my many, many cards to use on any given purchase, tell us a little bit about the man behind the app. How did you get into travel hacking?
Sure. So I've always liked to travel. Growing up, my entire family is French, so spent a lot of time on planes, even as a kid. Tried to see family there as often as we could, but then really got into travel hacking going back almost 10 years, about 8 years ago. I had always wanted to travel for free because I'm generally really frugal. And one night I was actually going out to dinner with my sister who was in Miami for a little bit, along with two of her friends. And those two friends were really into travel hacking to the tune of like $1 million plus per month in manufactured spending, like really crazy amounts. So that stuff I never went to that extreme, but they helped me to understand how useful it could really be and how easy it is with the right credit cards, with the right spending strategies. And I kind of went from there.
Very cool. And so when you were first getting started with travel hacking, everybody makes some silly mistakes in the beginning. What is a silly mistake that you made in your early days?
Oh, well, for years, because I could never actually get redemptions that would make sense. So whenever I would try to redeem some miles that I had accumulated kind of the old-fashioned way, actually like butt and seat accumulating miles, I could never redeem anything. The amount in taxes, because there were mostly flights to Europe, the amount in taxes was basically almost the same as getting like a normal flight. So I was like, okay, points are a scam. I don't believe in it. I'm not going to do it. And then fast forward a bit, and I got a Chase Freedom card. And I love the idea of getting 5x points on rotating quarters. But those points I just cashed out because I was such a believer that miles were a scam. And like when I look back, I think about how many, I don't even know, presumably thousands of dollars. I don't want to do the math. How many points I just kind of threw away by cashing them out. And it wasn't until that dinner with those friends that helped me to really understand the value of Chase points in particular, and then kind of went deep down the rabbit hole after that. But that was the biggest mistake I made early on, was just not understanding miles and how to actually use them after accumulating them.
So when you say you went down the rabbit hole pretty quickly, how many cards did you get right away? I'm assuming you started doing some kind of blitz strategy, grabbing multiple cards rather than going one at a time.
Yeah, that's a good assumption. So it went pretty quickly. Basically, I would look at what the minimum spend was, tried to understand the easiest way to meet those minimum spends and take advantage of those. So basically, I'd get one card. As soon as I could meet the minimum spend, I would go ahead and find another card. And basically, I have actually been more or less continuing that trend for the last few years, which is I always have one card that I'm working on minimum spend to get those sign-up offers. And then after that, my daily spend and any other time is really focused on category awards and really using those multipliers to keep those points balances up. But it went pretty quickly. I went from basically 2 credit cards to I think like 15 in the first year, something like that. So pretty healthy.
What were some of the cards you started with?
Back then it was, I got an SPG credit card. I got into the Amex world. I had actually avoided Amex on principle because when I had moved from the US to Europe, back when I was about 20 or so, that was the one bank that would not approve me for a credit card. I can't remember. I think it must have been like some version of the clear card or blue card, whatever it was called back then. And I only wanted it because it looked cool and it was transparent. And they rejected me. So I was like, okay, well, Amex doesn't want me. I don't want them. And for 10 years, I never wanted to get an Amex card until I started understanding the value of those points. And then I went in pretty quickly with, which one was it? I think the everyday card in the beginning. I got a platinum pretty early on, the gold card when it came out before it converted to the current product. Yeah, the SPG card. And I got a lot of Amex cards pretty quickly. I maxed out those 5 or 6 spots.
So what's your strategy these days, since you already have a very stuffed wallet of cards? What are some of the cards that you've gotten most recently, and how do you decide which cards to add to your wallet?
Sure. So most recently, I actually just got the Freedom Flex. So I was really happy to be under 524. That takes a lot of effort, especially with these kinds of habits that I was just talking about. So basically for me to stay under 524, I basically stuck to just business cards for the last 2 years, more or less. But the Freedom Flex I got literally on the last day that it was available in January to still get the 5X on groceries for the first year, which I'm really excited about, especially with the pandemic and everything. And I'm immunocompromised, so I'm not traveling right now. I'm basically just stocking up points, and to be able to do that with grocery stores and getting ultimate rewards makes it all that much more valuable for me. So really happy about that one.
Yeah, for sure. And once everything opens back up, what's the grand plan with all of these points and miles?
Definitely a very long vacation. Like I said, I love going to Europe, so I spend a lot more time in Europe again. So head back over there as soon as I can, basically as soon as I can get vaccinated and enough time has passed. That's totally the plan. Yeah, not really any aspirational trips per se, just getting back over to France, going over to Germany. I love going to the Nürburgring, the racetrack over there. So I haven't found a good way to use points to actually like rent a car to do track time with, but I'll keep working on that one. But at least I can get there for free and stay at hotels for free. So that adds up pretty quickly.
What is your day job that you can take a very long extended vacation to Europe once everything opens back up?
One of the few good things about the pandemic, I suppose, is the acceptance for working remotely, which has been really great. My day job right now is as director of engineering for a startup in San Francisco. But I'm actually transitioning now into doing CardPointers full time. So I already started a few days a week doing that now, and basically just going month by month, trying to be fair to the company that I've been working for the last year and a half, since just before CardPointers really started. And so basically just keeping really busy, working 2 jobs right now. But just doing that. And fortunately, CardPointers obviously lets me work remotely from anywhere. So that is a great benefit for sure of being an indie developer. I don't have a boss, so I can kind of do what I want with the app. And so that's a nice benefit. So that's the future, I hope.
For anybody who wants to turn their side gig into a full-time gig and then live this dream life, basically, of, oh, I'm just going to hang out in France, work for myself there, take long extended vacations, traveling for free. Describe your journey through that, from employee, director to entrepreneur. What kind of planning do you have to do in front of that? What kind of emergency fund to feel confident? What kind of, I don't know, what were your money goals that you had before you were like, I think I can go full time with my entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I mean, money wise, it was basically just if I could replace like enough of the salary that it made sense and I can see enough growth with the new business, that would give me enough confidence to be able to kind of make that leap. And as I said earlier, I tend to be very frugal, so that helps a lot. So especially with the pandemic, I'm not spending much money, and I'm living in Miami, so the cost of living is not very high, especially when I'm just staying in and not going out to restaurants, which I normally quite enjoy, not traveling again, which, although that tends to be pretty cheap, that still kind of adds up eventually. So yeah, there wasn't any particular like number or anything like that in mind. I've always been the type to kind of just make things work one way or another. Like if I needed to raise like some more money in some way, I would find some way to do like some side hustles. I mean, at one point I was racing cars on weekends, and during the week I was rebuilding cars and selling those and exporting them to the United States. So I've always done these weird little random like jobs and just hustled and managed to make things work. So it's always kind of how I've been, throughout my life.
That's so cool. And so the CardPointers app is free for people to download. So how are you getting revenue out of this lovely free service that I use on the daily, and that I know so many people who listen to this podcast use for free on the daily basis as well? How are you getting revenue out of this?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for using the app. Love having you as a user. It's great. I absolutely love being able to have this kind of direct interaction with users. That's another one of the great things about being an indie developer, is that you have this kind of open line of communication. And I've always made sure that I'm very involved, not as much in social as I would like per se, but in other avenues like Reddit. There's a good community following there now in one of the subreddits, credit cards. So that's always been really nice. But as far as monetizing, there's basically two ways that the app makes money. One is through credit card commissions. So there are some credit cards. I basically support over 3,000 credit cards now in the app. A small number of those will earn basically a commission if a user signs up using one of the links inside of the app. So that's a good chunk of the revenue. And then the other side of it is I have a pro tier in the app, which offers some extra features. So the basic features of knowing which card to use and which category to maximize your spend, that's free. And the new systems that I built, like tracking your Amex offers, your Chase offers, Citibank offers, and Bank of America offers, that is all part of the pro tier. You can kind of track that as you go along. You can do basic tracking as a non-pro, but the pro tier really lets you do some more advanced things, which would be for people who tend to have, like several credit cards, who want to be able to maximize their offers every month. Going pro is a big way to help that.
That's awesome. And for anybody who's listening and interested in the pro tier, how much is it to subscribe?
So the pro tier is $4 per month, or you can do $30 per year. So it tends to be, I think that's pretty cheap. It's less than a third of a kind of a typical annual fee for like a Sapphire Preferred or something. And then I would say most users who are using Pro, they well exceed the cost per month. Really easy to do so. For example, there's PayPal credit that a ton of people forgot about on the Platinum that just started for 6-month term in 2021. And I'd say most Platinum holders aren't even aware that they have that, but it's literally free money that they could use if just for making PayPal expenses for those first 6 months. And so just raising awareness for those kinds of offers, there you go. It pays for itself. So now people realize that they have $30 in credit, and it only costs them $4 to get a reminder about it, to be notified about any of those kinds of changes and those sorts of things.
That's awesome. And so where did you come up with the idea for the CardPointers app? Because I know a lot of people out in the community are like, oh, well, I have my own complicated spreadsheet, or there are some other websites that do this. I would say they are subpar to your app. Where did you come up with the idea of, I can build a better mousetrap? for the travel hacking community.
Sure. Well, thanks first of all for the compliment on CardPointers. I've basically gone through a few iterations of this basic concept. At one point, I even had a Facebook Messenger bot when I thought those would be popular. It just got announced, and I had worked on this basic concept in another form, so I repurposed it for that. But then Facebook Messenger didn't really take off with those bots and everything. And then repurposed that again. Basically, it was early 2019 is when I originally had the idea of doing something different, actually. It was going to be basically a way to print stickers to affix to the top of your cards to keep track of categories for your different cards. That's what I had been doing for my parents and my sister for a little while to help them keep track of everything. I had kind of more or less forced them into credit cards so that they could travel for free as well. But it was hard for them to keep track of everything. And the previous apps that were decent at this, like Wallaby, which was also TBG to go at one point, it was a white label product. They did a pretty good job of the basic which cards to use in which category, but those were both removed from the App Store. And there was literally nothing left anymore that could do this. There were some web products, but I didn't want to have to log into like a website. Then it wouldn't work offline. And I have the misfortune of always being in the grocery store that has no Wi-Fi and no cell phone connection. So I could never, if I couldn't remember which card to use for grocery purchases, I was screwed. And so that was kind of like the impetus for building the original app. And I launched first with what is now the PWA, Progressive Web App, which runs on Android, runs on the web, as kind of a proof of concept. And then it kind of went from there. I wanted to make sure that the idea still had traction, and this was something that people wanted, and quickly managed to garner a few thousand users. So that kind of proved the concept to me, and was really happy about that because my main interest and passion in programming is iPhone, iPad apps. And so I wanted to first prove out that concept. And once that was proven, I was really excited to kind of go all in on the iPhone app and really blow that up and make it a fantastic native app that is just great on the platform and just makes people's lives easier. That was the big goal. And so, I've been doing that now since I launched on iOS in September of 2019.
Where did you get your first 1,000 users or so? Was this mostly marketing to a subreddit and saying, hey guys, download this app, give me your feedback, let me know what features you would like? Because I'm sure a lot of people are like, how did you get 1,000
Yeah, exactly.
users?
So it was a lot of Facebook, some private groups that are in this space. Fortunately, this is, it's a pretty large community and people are very passionate about it. So they love to share opinions. They like to share things that work for them. So that was a big part of it. Reddit was a huge part of that as well. And I'm very thankful for those users that sign up early, kind of put some faith in the app and in me, I suppose. And really appreciated that they did that. And that's why I made sure that for those users who were kind of early on, I want to make sure that anything that they had access to back then, they always continue to have access indefinitely. That was a really important part as I built things out and added a pro tier and all that. I want to make sure that didn't leave those people behind.
Whenever anybody asks me, hey, what spreadsheet do you use to track what card you should use for any given purchase? I go on this complete rant about why you should not use a spreadsheet for this. And I'm an actuary, so everybody always assumes I just use spreadsheets to track everything in my life. But I think that if you are actually good at spreadsheets, you know to stop using them for everything in your life, and that somebody has probably already coded an app for whatever you're trying to do. And so I really love the CardPointers app for that because it's so good at just answering the simple question of what card am I supposed to use for this? And so that's the base functionality, as you mentioned. What types of new features can we expect on the horizon?
So it's definitely a lot more than a spreadsheet. One of the great things about it is that you only need one person to put in the information correctly, and then that can benefit thousands and thousands of people. So instead of it's great in just for the sense of efficiency. And the problem with spreadsheets is that you need to keep everything up to date yourself. And with how much things change, especially during COVID last year, in particular, with Chase and Amex offers changing almost every day at one point, I was going kind of crazy because I was trying to keep everything up to date in the app. I would start off my morning by reading RSS feeds and newsletters and Facebook groups. And I was like, I don't know how I can keep up with this. It wasn't programmed to support things this way, but just continually adding things into there and updating it all the time. And the nice thing that you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. You don't have to spend hours a day, keeping spreadsheets up to date, reading blogs and reading all this stuff. You can just use the app and it takes care of everything for you. So that's a very intentional thing. Yeah. So coming up next for the app, I've been heavily focused on supporting the various offers from Amex, Chase, Bank of America, and Citibank. So I've taken a novel approach to that. There aren't really like many sites or apps that can track these offers in this way. So the problem that you always run into is you add offers, at least I do. I would add offers to a card. I would be really optimistic that I would remember to use them. And then actually, as the month goes on, I would completely forget about the offers and they would just expire. And then I would have lost like, $50 on Best Buy or, like a $10 off on something. And that would be really frustrating for me. So I was trying to think of a novel approach to integrate that into the app. And I think I finally pretty much nailed it. There's a little bit more I want to do with it, but that's the biggest new feature that I just came out with is adding offers from those 4 banks and also doing custom offers in the very near future. So that's been a big focus for the last few months with the app.
So I know one of my personal challenges whenever I'm trying to figure out what method of payment to do is there's not just the layer of what card should I use, but also what cashback portal to use. Is it better to do an Amex offer through Rakuten or a Chase offer through Swagbucks or something else, and how to best stack different combinations? And that would be a dream come true if there were just an app that did this for me one day. Is that anywhere on your project plan roadmap to incorporate all of our different stacking techniques?
Yes, I've had a lot of requests actually for ways to improve stacking and just to make it easier. I do have some ideas around that. It's something that I haven't built a proof of concept for yet, but I think I do have some ideas that could make that a lot easier for people. I think the offers tend to be used more often than stacking, but for sure that's a great way to save some extra money. It's something that I do often, but at the same time I often forget to do it. So if I could have some kind of automated way to do that, then I think that'd be really helpful. So that's one of the things that I want to look into. But in general, just adding even more ways to the app to help people just maximize their savings and just not waste any money and get more money back. So that's definitely the goal. So yeah, I hope to be able to get to that too.
Awesome. How friendly are most cashback websites to third-party services scraping their data to try to figure out, Saks Fifth Avenue now is up to 16% back on Rakuten. This is the time to use your Amex Platinum Saks credit. How friendly are these sites to somebody trying to tap into that?
Yeah, so as far as I know, none of them have APIs per se, which is what I would normally use to interface with those kinds of services. But there are kind of simplistic services like Cashback Monitor is kind of my go-to to find which sites to use. And it's really basic and the rates tend to not change too often. So I don't think it'd be too bad to actually do that. I've tried to be cognizant of making sure I don't violate any terms of service and such. So I would rather have an official relationship. I'm not a big fan of scraping people's data who don't want you to do it. It doesn't feel good and it tends to be very fragile. And then, there could be legal problems and everything else. And I much prefer to stay on the really safe side and do things the right way rather than just kind of the quick and dirty way. So ideally, that's the way I would like to do it. But yeah, until I built a proof of concept, I don't know if I can, but I hope I can build it that way in a much better way.
Speaking of not needing to scrape people's data when they don't want it, another really good thing about CardPointers that I don't know if we've mentioned yet is you don't actually have to type in any of your bank login information. You don't have to give your Amex login or anything like that. All you have to do is say, here are the cards I have in my wallet. Which one should I be using? Which is really nice that you don't have to worry about one more site that, what if it gets corrupted and they get all of my bank sign-in data for Chase and Amex and everything else?
Yeah, absolutely. That was super important to me. I'm very concerned with people's privacy and security. So I tried to make sure I collect the least amount possible. It's kind of core to the experience is to never ask for banking credentials. I don't understand how people can give them out to sites. You hear about data breaches all the time. If a website or app can log in to your bank account and retrieve like your transactions, unless they're using Plaid or something like that, and even then it's a little risky. At least it's a bigger company. But if it's anyone else, it means that literally they have your password in the clear. They could go in, they could transfer money from your account. I mean, it's terrifying. And I think a lot of people just put like this kind of trust in it because it's an app in the App Store. But it's important to be really critical of that and just Yeah, and just be protective of your data, be protective of all this stuff. People tend to, people are really quick to monetize users in other ways, like sell your data. It, it's a scary world out there when you really analyze it. And so it's really important to give as little as possible so that way you don't have to take too much of a risk. And in this case, you can do everything that you need to maximize your savings and maximize points and rewards without having to hand over that data. So there's no reason to hand it over.
Absolutely. People ask me all the time with coaching, oh, can you just book this award ticket for me? I'll just give you all of my login info and you can access my points. And I'm like, no, like I'm not even well versed on the legal ramifications of how much you could sue me if that went wrong. But no, for anybody who's wondering what I do in my coaching sessions, I don't do that. I don't collect your passwords or usernames or anything. I just teach you travel hacking. So just disclaimer on that.
Yeah, that's good. It's a much safer way to go. I'm glad you don't even take any chances with that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not accepting. Here's my login and password. Do it for me. Will teach people how to be a little bit more self-sufficient than that. Okay, so speaking of being very self-sufficient, using all of the things from the app, which I assume you're using on a daily basis as well, just to keep up with the user experience and everything. What has been your favorite or most successful trip that you've been able to book on Points and Miles?
Yeah, so I think the biggest trip that I've ever taken, it was kind of one of those dream flights. I've got a few others like in mind in the future that I love to do, but one of the really big ones was flying on one of the A380s with the shower on board. I don't know why. It's one of those things I saw like on some websites. I think I saw Casey Neistat did a video with that, and it just looked like one of those crazy like special moments that I really wanted to do. And as luck would have it, I was staying in France for a little while with some family, and I had some friends who were going to be in Dubai for New Year's. And there just so happened to be a flight aboard the A380, not the longest flight in the world, but it was still a good few hours. And I had actually booked a business class fare from Paris to Dubai on the 31st of December. And when I got there, there were very few people traveling on New Year's Eve, which I guess makes sense, but that's why I was able to find availability. And I go to scan my boarding pass after enjoying the lounge, having some incredible dates from Emirates, which are so good. And they scan my boarding pass and it beeps really weirdly. And she's like, oh, one moment. And she kind of steps aside for about 30 seconds and comes back. And she goes, here you go. You're in 5A or something like that, I think it was. I was like, 5A, that's way front. I was only in business class, which should have been like around like 15 or something on. And she's like, oh, we upgraded you to first class. I'm like, no way. So, because business class does not have the showers, but first class does. And I was so happy about that. So, I mean, what a way to end the year, especially because it was all like paid for with points and miles, made it kind of all that much sweeter. But yeah, it was fantastic. So I literally spent the last, I think it was like around like 10 p.m. or something like that on the last day of the year in a shower, just kind of wondering how the hell that happened and how I got to be so lucky. So yeah, that was my favorite redemption so far. I'm trying to think of how I booked it. I think it was SPG that I had to transfer at some point. It was before it switched over to Marriott, but I don't remember the actual balance. But the taxes were a bit high. But again, it was one of those, I was a little crazy for the last day of the year. So that's why I went with that one. So there would have been cheaper ways to do it beforehand. I think with Alaska, I think there was a good trick to get Emirates that way. So yeah, it wasn't an ideal redemption, but sometimes it just doesn't matter. So yeah, you just got to do it sometimes.
Is there a line for the shower? Because everybody wants to experience this thing on this.
They schedule it. So at the start of the flight, they ask, what time would you like to use the shower if you'd like to use it? And so I was thinking, well, I don't want to take a shower and then go back to bed and then wake up. I'm like, the whole point of a shower, I'm a morning shower person. So I thought to myself, I'm going to book the last one possible. And so that's exactly what I did. So I think there were two other people in first class. So, and I don't think anyone else used the shower. So yeah, it was the very last opening and just December 31st that year.
That is an amazing story. Definitely not been on one of these shower flights. It's still on the to-do list one of these days when everything's open again and I have enough points to do this. But that sounds incredible. All right. So as we are wrapping up, what is your best one-line piece of advice for any travel hackers looking to level up their game and listening today?
It's a little self-serving, but I do honestly mean it because it's what I do every day, and that's use card pointers. It just makes things easy. Like that's literally the whole point. I'm doing this stuff every single day, and I still won't remember that. Like the Freedom Unlimited, for example, it gets 3% at restaurants now. I just won't think about that, and I use it to track like sign up offers now. It's got a tracking system built into it for pro users, which makes it really easy. And with the Amex offers and Chase offer integration, it means I'm finally not letting that money go to waste. So I literally use it all the time. And I think that probably shows in how the app has evolved over time and why I try to make it really quick, get out of the way, just get the data that you need to help you save money. So I've got things like Siri shortcut integrations. I got widgets built in, a whole lot of things. So you don't even need to load the app to get the data that you need, but it just helps make sure that you're maximizing your points. It makes it so easy. So yeah, that's my one piece of advice for sure.
That's a really good piece of advice. It's one that I shout out all over Instagram all the time. When anybody ever is like, look how impressive my spreadsheet is. I'm like, I am not impressed. There's an app for this. Use card pointers. So speaking of shout outs, can you give a shout out to a travel hacker who you think everybody should go follow, check out their content because they give great advice on points and miles?
Yeah, kind of a two-parter. So Kyle, Hack Your Bag with Points, was on your podcast. He's just always puts out tons of good content. Max with at Max Miles Points. I mean, all of his Instagram posts are just beautiful. I mean, I'm so impressed. Like it's just like this whole nother level. And I feel like it kind of ups everyone else's level who are also like in this space on Instagram. And you can kind of see over the last few months in particular, as he's put out more and more of these, that other people are not copying it, but influenced by the idea. And now they're making really nice assets and everything that they can share with people. And it's Instagram. So it's made for, things that look really nice. People like pretty photos. And these are incredible information, very timely, and they just look fantastic. So those are kind of my two favorites to follow on Instagram, I think. Always great content. And I'm always learning something new from both of them. So it's fantastic.
Absolutely. I agree so much. I've had both Kyle and Max on the podcast. They're both amazing people. Kyle is so knowledgeable about all of the next level hacks. And Max's reels are like movies. And mine are me bouncing around off tempo to some royalty-free music and pointing at words in random directions. I am trying to be leveled up on my Instagram because of Max's influence, but all of my like travel hacking tutorials and graphic designs that I made through Canva instead of Adobe Pro, I hide them behind pictures of myself because I don't want people to see how bad I am at graphic design. Like, I hope that you are all swiping through my photos to get to the actual good content that I have on the slides. But if somebody's just scrolling down through my feed, they're harder to find, mostly because I'm ashamed of my graphic design skills. I am not.
Well, even with yours, I mean, I've seen it's done really good. I mean, as much as you're self-conscious, I guess, about those, but no, they're great. And like the reels they're awesome. Like, I think at the end of the day, you need to just be kind of you, and that kind of shines through. And so the people who are genuine, it just kind of comes through. And, like with the reels and the funny dancing and the pointing at words, it just feels kind of like on character, and I love it. So please don't stop doing those. Like it's just another aspect that makes the people that I follow on Instagram all that much better. So I love it.
Thank you. All right. Well, speaking of Instagram and the rest of the internet,
sure. So I've tried to make things pretty simple. So it's at CardPointers pretty much everywhere. App Store, you can search Card Pointers, and then Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I spend most of my time on Twitter and Instagram, really, when it comes to social, and I'm playing with TikTok too. So catch me over there as well. But I'm focusing now on doing some more videos, kind of how-tos and showing off tips and tricks for maximizing credit cards and using parts of the app that are kind of more hidden away. And so I'll be posting more content there on social media in the very near future. I'm leaving that to you. See, that is not my, like I said, you have to be genuine. And dancing is just not me. So I'll be sticking to behind the camera, and I'll be doing a lot of screen recording and some voiceover stuff. So that's already a big step for me.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been so much. Wonderful I really appreciate it.
And please keep up the great work on the podcast. It's one of my favorite things to catch every week. So keep it up.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards or other tools mentioned on today's call piqued your interest, please use the links in the show notes to apply or to learn more about any of the cards. Commissions earned from these signups help to support the podcast. Additionally, the single best travel hack I can recommend is finding friends who can show you about even more travel hacks, and it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend. And if you would like to meet even more travel hacking friends, come join one of our travel hanging hangouts. We discuss behind-the-scenes tips, celebrate each other's wins, and mostly just enjoy being around other people who enjoy this hobby just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, just head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts and sign up to be on the invite list. See you there, take care, and happy travels.